evening to you, all of my friends out there, and welcome into another episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob, Mr. Casey Kitteman, and Nick Carnes down below. We're brought to you, as always, by our friends over at SeatGeek. Listen, we enjoyed SummerSlam last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
A great time at SummerSlam. There's some smack talk. Cody Rhodes just destroyed Solo Sikoa, just undressed him on live TV, destroyed him. Just happened, watching it live. I'm not supposed to be. They told me to stop watching, but that's what we're doing. So go check out our friends over at SeatGeek. Use our promo code BarkingBrowns. Get $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching us on any platform that isn't YouTube, go to the youtube.com/@thebarkingbrowns. Hit that sub button, hit that bell, give us a thumbs up. Helps us out a ton. 105 subs away from 1,000. So Tell your friends, hit that sub button, make a bunch of extra accounts, hit the sub button with that.
Tell people you don't like.
Yeah.
Tell everyone. Find a mountain and scream it.
I don't even care if they watch. That's why I told my friends, I'm like, I don't even care if you watch. Just hit that sub button. I don't give a shit. Gentlemen, how are we?
Cloud 9, man. Actual preseason games are happening right now. We had one last night or two last night. We kick off our season tomorrow, man. We made it, and it was somehow the longest and the shortest off season in memory at the same time. I don't know how that worked, but here we are, baby.
I'll tell you what, I'm fresh off about a 4-hour nap, so I'm feeling refreshed and alive. I got coffee. You know, we're restarting the Friday night here, and I'm just thinking about how we are. Let's see, it's 8 p.m., so we're like 20 hours. Is my math correct?
The math.
I was going to say it have to be.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. So I'll be taking the game in with one repowered Andy Mansion. And if you missed the dog chug, it had Jacob on it. Just spilling, having all the knowledge there Tuesday night. But he is finally back in power, and so I hope everybody else out there is as well. Because for those of us broadcasting from not up here, it has been a shit show. I can tell you that. My grocery stores are still running the generators. I think they're burning through like 300 gallons of diesel a day doing so. So slowly but surely, they're getting everything back in order up here.
Our good friend Jared checking in. How's it going, Jared? Jared, I just remembered I didn't do that thing you asked me to do. Text me tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I swear to God. He knows what I'm talking about. Don't worry. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. He'll take care of it. But we got a freaking fantastic show tonight, guys. Kind of a quick hitter. We're going to do our first preview episode. And I'll let Casey do the honors of introducing our guests for our Packers preview.
Yeah, man. Super lucky. Friend of the show. He's back, and he's going to educate us all. He's been boots on the ground at the training camp. He was in the Greenbrier, and he's been in Berea, seeing everything go down. We're going to pick his brain, and we're all going to get smarter for it. So you know him, you love him, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lance Reisland.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm excited because we get the weird angles that they allow you guys to record, and we get them on we get them on Twitter and everything like that. So I'm really excited to be able to pick your brain as someone who actually was there and actually can see it at a better angle than I could. I did want to answer Drew's question. That was me. I rode.
Oh yes.
Cyberdog.
Have you seen the Cyberdog, Lance?
I have not.
Oh.
The our good friend Andy Mansion, who has the Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck.
I have seen the truck. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have seen that. Yes. I didn't know what you're talking about. I have seen that. Yes.
Yeah. We rode with him to SummerSlam last Saturday in Cyberdog. And it's crazy because everybody who sees it is like wanting to get your attention, and they're like, and Andy drives this every day. It's his daily driver. He drives this around. I'm telling you, I'd be on my phone, like texting or something, and I'd look up and a bunch of people would just be staring at me. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then I'm like, oh, I'm in the Cyberdog. I forgot.
Andy,
did you feel like you were being taken to prom?
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what. So Andy drives from the east side over to us on the west side and is kind enough to pick us up, right? So he's like, hey, let's go to a local joint and let's get some food before we go downtown. So I'm like, okay. We drive 5 minutes away, right? No big deal. And Andy pulls into this parking spot, and the first thing that happens is this lady's in the car next to us, and she rolls down the window, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen!" And she's like, she's like, "Is that what is that?" And Andy had to explain that it's a Tesla truck. She's like, "It's electric," and just proceeded to lose her mind over it being wrapped in browns, which was certainly not the last time because we then had an adventure because between a sold out Guardians game and SummerSlam having all those people, it's quite an adventure to find a parking spot in Cleveland. So we had to drive all around downtown for a while, and just the looks and people, you just see people pulling out their phones, taking pictures. It was quite something. Not something I'm used to.
All right. Well, let's hit some training camp stuff first, Lance, before we kind of dive into some of the stuff we want to talk about with this game tomorrow. So I'll kind of let you go wherever you want with this first one, but just kind of someone that kind of maybe an unexpected person who caught your eye this week that maybe you had been kind of, maybe tracking him or whatever, but really seemed to show up this week.
I'll tell you what, obviously the Browns are pretty locked into who their starters are, right? So, for me, I'm watching who's the left tackle going to be if something was to happen. Who's that fifth receiver? Are they going to keep more than they normally keep because they've been in a lot of 11 personnel, like everybody has talked about? A guy who I've really liked physically and then has made some play, is Michael Woods. Michael Woods has been very good lengthwise. He's been very good at zone. Playing against zone, playing against man. And what I like about what I'm seeing is they're doing a lot of vertical and horizontal stretch stuff. So they're all learning. They're all kind of this offense seems pretty fun. Lots of movement, lots of pre-snap movement. And so Michael Woods is very, very good. A lot of the defensive linemen are very good. Alex Wright's another guy who's physically changed his body. Siaki Ika, I'm really looking forward to seeing play because he's lost a bunch of weight and looks very fit. I'm interested to see James Hudson if he can be that left tackle. So there's been a lot of guys. I say a guy who's been really impressive, and everybody kind of expected. Seth Tillman's been pretty good. He had a really good day indoor the other day. Being indoors is kind of nice, for us because we get, you're up close when you're indoors. You're up close when you're outside, but when you're indoors, you're really you're in the mix kind of. So he's had a really good camp, and then obviously the guy who I've talked about a bunch today on some other things that I've worked on today. Deshaun Watson has been a lot better than people have thought. Now he's had some days where he has not been very good in terms of consistency, but there comes a lot of it with, there's camp arm, you have a camp arm. It's a new offense. He's coming off his injury. I've actually been very impressed all the way down the Greenbrier. I think they're doing a really good job of ramping him up. That's why I try to be down there every day because I try to have some knowledge to give you guys and not just kind of assume things. And, watching him every day, I think they're doing a great job of how many throws he gets, where he's throwing, how he's throwing, types of throws he's making. He's making all the throws. He's moving in the pocket. They're struggling blocking that defensive line, but there's a reason. That defensive line is very good. And so it makes it tough because he's always having to scramble. If people are criticizing the tackles, I don't care who's in there. That's a really good defensive line. And so, but I've actually thought he's progressing pretty well. So those are some of the things I've seen. And then I like the professionalism of like Ward and Emerson and Batonio. Those guys are constantly working on their craft. I love going down there to individual. That's how I start my day every day. I watch the first 20 minutes of offensive line. Super impressed with Dickerson. High energy guy, real attention to detail. Jacques Cesar is a great defensive line coach. Another guy is attention to detail guy, very high energy. Those guys do lots of competitions down there. So, yeah, it's been a very good camp. Stefanski is known for he's a non-physical camp guy. They don't get after it. I'm really looking forward to next Tuesday and Wednesday will be a good test against the Vikings. That's really, really kind of cool to be down there because that's when the ones and ones will go at it, and they'll go at it really hard. So, for me, those are the preseason games that I'm really looking forward to those 2 days because, for me, those are 2 preseason games.
Your answer was so awesome that I've changed my follow-up question like 4 times. I'm going to start with Deshaun. So from where I'm at watching, and it's limited with the clip, so you've seen a more complete view of this. For me, it looks like his footwork is matching his processing to where he's getting to the back of his drop and he's doing his reads and getting rid of the ball on time and on schedule. Whereas last year I saw a lot where he'd drop back and the processing wasn't there, so it would cause a couple extra hops at the top of the drop, and then some of your timing's off in a timing-based offense. So the clips I'm seeing, it looks like it's coming out real smooth. His back foot's hitting, ball's coming out. Is that what you're seeing consistently? Is because his processing, does it look like he's really taking this offense in?
Well, I've always said this about guys who are the top, the one percenters, right? The one percenters of the one percenters. When you have the arm talent and the abilities of Deshaun Watson, you get away with a lot of stuff. So if you watch those guys, the Patrick Mahomes, they get away with doing things that aren't really technically sound.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's time you need to do those things, and there's a time where in the pocket you want to be fundamentally sound. And the things I've seen from him that he's always done well, but it really seems to be a focus is that he is on balance all the time, whether it's in the pocket or outside the pocket. He's got a lot of rotational torque, and that's just a fancy word saying he's getting his body into it, right? And there's lots of quarterback gurus out there, and I coach quarterbacks for 25 years. And no matter what you say in any sport, it all starts with your hips. So he's doing a really good job of, getting his left hip to his right hip. And then he's doing a really good job of getting his weight from his back to his front. And those are things that you sometimes lose when you're as talented as Deshaun Watson physically. And they work at it a lot. And Dorsey's a guy who really stresses fundamentals, using your hips, using your feet, making sure you're stepping outside the target. Their offense is really kind of detailed in terms of the motion. And I think the motion, I know for me, I use motion as an offense coordinator. It really gives that quarterback a really good picture of what he's seeing. And there's a lot of pre-snap motion shifts, things like that are giving him, I think, a really clear picture of what coverage he's seeing. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The fundamentals are really, really there. What they're doing, ramping him up day in and day out is there. I've been asked a lot of questions because he has had a couple of tough days, but everybody has a couple of tough days. Yeah. I think he's doing the right things, and I think he'll be very good. And I think he's a guy who, remember, his number one quality is improvising when the play breaks down. And I think he'll get back to that. And that's why practice is so important, because everybody's got to know when the play breaks down, where he's going to be and what they're going to do. So, I've been impressed with his timing. I've been impressed with his accuracy and anticipation. All the quarterbacks have done a great job, and that's a credit to Dorsey, because those guys are really they're in tune to what they're doing and how they're doing it in every rep they take. So it's been fun to watch.
I got one follow-up before I pass it off to you, Nick, and it branches off this. So last night we had Dr. Morse on All Eyes on Cleveland, and we were talking about Deshaun's injury and what to look for where he might struggle, because it was a broken bone. Bones heal back stronger, so you're not really worried about that. You're worried about him not using that shoulder for so many months, and he could compensate with other parts of his body to make things happen, and which could lead to other injuries and inaccuracy. So the days that he's struggling, are you noticing any compensation that he's doing to take pressure off his shoulder? Or is it just, you're going up against one of the best defenses in the league, and some days you're just going to struggle?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think a lot of all of that, right? So if it makes any sense, he has some. I don't see him. His fundamentals are outstanding. He looks really smooth. I've been asked a lot of questions about his ability to put zip on the ball, and for me, it's not the 45 to 55 yard pass. For me, it's the chunk play from 15 to 25. Mm-hmm. Can you do a high-low on a dig route, things like that, the out route? So he's had all that zip. He's had a couple of days where the defense is really, really good. And when I tell everybody, through camp, the defense should be better. And I've always said that, especially when you're pressure defense. It's really hard for that young offensive line, and Schwartz is throwing twists and stunts. And like the other day inside, that was the first day that they started bringing 4 and 5 and 6 man pressures with stunts. And it just makes it really tough on an offensive line that doesn't have some guys that they think are going to be in there week one. But no, I have not seen anything fundamentally that he has changed. In fact, I think he looks better fundamentally. I think the injury, because he probably wasn't able to throw, my thought is that and this is I have no proof of this, but just watching him, I just think because your arm and you can't throw a ball that you're going to focus on other things. And what he was able to focus on is his lower body from his hips down. So that's what I've seen. I think the bad days have a lot to do with that. There's some really good corners that he's thrown against every day, and they're in press coverage. And Myles Garrett is a practice ruiner. The rest of those guys can be blocked. Myles Garrett's a whole different story. You can't really run Myles Garrett's if he's not getting doubled, he's really ruining the play almost on every play. And there's, I remember in high school, there's always that high school kid that's better. And I would never put him on defense because you can't get anything done. And that's what Myles Garrett is. Myles Garrett's a guy who doesn't let you get anything done. So, but yeah, they've been high competition. I think the receivers have done a good job. I think Cooper's done it's been a really good camp for what Kevin Stefanski. And there's lots of different ways to do it right. But Kevin Stefanski is very intellectual. It's a non-physical camp. They have their physical moments, but it's not a Steelers camp where they're just knocking the crap out of each other. But no, I think he's right on track, and I have not seen anything where he's compensating whatsoever.
Lance, you mentioned Michael Woods, who's near and dear to the hearts of this show. And and also Cedric Tillman. And I think one of the things I'm most interested in as the Browns head into the season is I'm pretty sure we're well defined with Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy, thinking about those two names and mix them.
Put them together,
Up at the top of the wide receiver core. But between Cedric Tillman, Michael Woods, Elijah Moore, and really David Bell, I'm just curious to know kind of what you're looking at as far as like the pecking order of those guys. So like who has impressed you the most? Because generally, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that head into preseason is how those guys are gonna who's gonna rise to the top.
Well, I think you're pretty set on the first four. I think that, it seems like in practice, so you're going Moore. You're going Cooper, you're going Jerry Jeudy, you're going Elijah Moore, and then Ced Tillman seems to be that fourth guy. And then everybody fifth and sixth. And then again, being an 11 personnel, they might keep 7, right? 6 or 7. It'll be interesting to see what they do, especially when Hines comes back, because they, he and Ford can really split out and do some different things as well. So I've been very impressed physically with Tillman and Woods in terms of how they look physically this year to last year. Last year, they looked like college kids. This year, they kind of look like men, if that makes any sense. They're physically, they've grown up. For me, it's about matchups. And I think Kevin Stefanski does a great job. I've always said this. It's not if you like the plan, it's if you have a plan. And I always believe that Kevin Stefanski has a plan. And, as a coach, you're either fired or you're waiting to get fired. And the best way you avoid that is to have your plan and stick to your plan. And part of that plan is he's a matchup guy. So when you think about like Ced Tillman, for example, if you think about 12 personnel, first and foremost, Giovanni Ricci's much more athletic than I thought he was. I was kind of taken aback by his athleticism. And I'm not saying he's a super athlete, but I'm saying he can do some things split out a little bit. So you think about the red zone, you think about if you go 12 personnel and you think about Giovanni Ricci being the fullback, it's almost 21 personnel. Then you think about a defense having to bring that regular defense in, or even a goal line defense. And now you got matchups, right? So now you got Cooper and Ced Tillman, who are these big guys outside who could, and then obviously Marlon Humphrey from the Ravens is going to go to Cooper, right? So now you got a matchup with Ced Tillman at 6'3". So, excuse me. I just think it's a matchup. I think Kevin Stefanski believes in matchups. I think all these guys have done a great job. I've said it since day one. I think Elijah Moore is just as good outside as he is inside. He's a complete receiver. He can run the full route tree from both sides. Amari Cooper is the alpha. So for me, he makes everybody else better because he's the alpha, and he takes coverage. He understands where he's going. I've watched a lot of football in my life. I'm a coach's kid, and I've never seen a guy use pace and angles at the receiver position like Amari Cooper. If you're talking about a guy who's not a burner, and he's not a burner, but his ability to use angles and change of pace make him a burner. So I just think the receiving core is going to be deeper than people think, even like David Bell. David Bell is a guy who's made some catches. Jamari Thrash has made some catches. The 11 personnel is very interesting, and I think the guys who can play both inside and out are going to be the guys who are those fifth and sixth, possibly seventh guys. And then, of course, you got to add special teams in there. If you're going to be that fifth, sixth, seventh guy, you got to be able to play some special teams. And with this new kickoff, that'll be important as well. But when I think about the top 4, I think those are pretty locked in. But I look forward to Ced Tillman and Michael Woods being guys that you can use down in the red zone and with Cooper and just have some size. You go 11 personnel in the red zone and get the defense you want, you're going to get a safety on a guy in the slot or a backer. So there's some things they can do personnel-wise to create matchups. But I think the receiving crew is much better than people give it credit for. They've been pretty impressive at practice.
Yeah. The Mike Woods thing, man, like, oh my God, I loved Mike Woods last couple of years, and then things just did not work out for him. And it's like, so I'm pretty excited to see what he does tomorrow specifically, just kind of when he gets those opportunities. You talk about inside outside when it comes to the wide receivers, but a guy that's kind of caught my attention that I'm curious a little bit about. I wrote an article that dropped this morning on Browns Wire with 5 guys that I think could have the most to gain tomorrow in that game. And Tillman was one of them, but another guy that I come to is Sam Kamara. Like, Sam Kamara has kind of hung around for a while. He's been here the last couple of years. He'll be on the practice squad, get elevated, play a little bit, get cut, get brought back, all that stuff. And I know they've kind of used him a little bit more inside here in camp as kind of like the situational rusher. Like, I know he's not going to do much as a run defender because he's very undersized when he's inside anyway. But like, I think that he's turned some, garnered some attention. So I just wondered what you've seen from Kamara.
That whole defensive group has been super impressive. And like I said, new defensive line coach, Jacques, he has fun down there. Those guys work hard, but they have a lot of fun. Now, what I've seen with Kamara is that Kamara's been very good on all special teams. In fact, his energy and effort has been really, really high. And what I always try to watch in practice is those guys that we all talk about being kind of on the fringe and things I'm learning, because I just try to watch the film and tell you what I see and then listen to other people and listen to what they have to say. And, trying to kind of see how NFL teams work, those guys who are on special teams, it's very important, right? So you see Kamara on all those special teams and kickoff return and punt. He's a guy who jumps up. He's a guy who plays with great energy. But I will tell you that defensive line group, that's a really hard group to make right now. You're talking about they didn't have any of their guys in their walkthrough, and they're still a really good defensive front. When you talk about the depth they have, there's going to be guys who are not making this team that are going to be starters on other teams this year, in my opinion, because they're so deep. So I think Kamara gives him great energy, and I think he's a guy, if he's a fringe guy, this kickoff is a real thing to me. So these guys who can be on this kickoff return, punt return, things like that, that's very important. And he's a guy who's been doing a great job. He's a guy that gets constantly called out by coaches for the job he does and all those things. So he, just like the rest of those defensive linemen, are very impressive, and they're very impressive 12, 13 deep.
Let's stay on the defensive line for a second. And Jacob is probably too humble to ask a question about his guy, but you mentioned him earlier. And I do agree with you. I think tomorrow night, none of the starters are going to play, but they're going to put a line out there, the defensive line that's going to be better than some starting defensive lines just all backups with Okoronkwo, Wright, Hurst, Hall. Like they have a pretty good complement there. But let's go with Wright, because no one wants to see an injury. But with Za'Darius probably going to be resting for a little while with a knee contusion, I think the Browns are getting a snapshot of what life is like with Alex Wright as the starter opposite of Myles Garrett. And what strikes you with his development, like what you're seeing in practice, and what do you think that – because next week they go against the Minnesota Vikings, and that's iron sharpening iron. You get a really good look at what he's going to look like as a starter in the NFL.
Well, two things, right? So when he came out of UAB, here's what I've noticed about guys in the NFL. And once again, I learned just like you guys, right? So what I've learned is those guys, those high-level guys, especially those guys who are NFL guys not coming out of like Power 5 schools, right? So you get a guy coming out of UAB, and what you see I saw last year with Alex Wright is that he was all about size and speed. On the NFL, that doesn't work. You've got to have a pass rush plan. You've got to be able to use your hands. And when you're Alex Wright at UAB, you don't have to do any of that. You just kind of do your thing. And what I've seen over his progression through last year, this year, is, first of all, physically, he said Tillman, Michael Woods. There's the guys who there's guys physically who have decided, I have to get in better shape and be physically ready to go to play at this level. And now what you've seen at Alex Wright is that his physical things you can't teach, he has, right? The size, speed, God-given ability. So now he's kind of coupled that with using his hands very well in the run game, extending defensive line. He's got long arms. And then he's starting to come up with a pass rush plan. He's got some guys to learn from. And each and every day, I try to make a point to watch the offensive defensive line. And those young guys are constantly talking to Myles and constantly talking to Za'Darius. And they're constantly working on their craft. And that's what I've seen out of Alex Wright. He's just a big physical kid who's now grown up and able to play because he didn't have to play when he was drafted. And that's what good football teams do. They're able to take these guys who don't need to play right away. And they're able to take these guys who are physically – you can't teach what Alex Wright is physically. You can't teach that. But you can teach him a pass rush plan. You can teach him how to use his hands. And that's what I see out of him. And he's been very good in camp. I think the most impressive thing about him is how he's physically changed his body. And he looks more like Myles Garrett now than he does anybody else. He's just a big, physical, long guy.
Yes.
That's really exciting to hear.
I've got an Alex Wright 94 jersey in the closet. Like I got it, which of course they signed Dalvin and he switches his number right after I've had it. But that was my crush that year. He was that guy. You were looking at a toolsy player that you're just like, just teach him what to do with his hands and he'll be awesome. And
well, even if you look at Isaiah Thomas is another guy. Physically, he looks really good. Now, what is that? Does that transform, or transfer to the field? I don't know, but my dad always taught me you got to be a certain standard to get a seat at the table. Doesn't mean you eat, but you're not even at the table unless you get yourself physically ready to go. And that whole defensive line, I'm not kidding you, every single one of those guys looks physically ready to go. They'll be very tough. You're going to see those guys just dominate. I think second half type stuff in preseason games because that's a legit crew that they're running out there. Their thirds are a legit crew.
I'll tell you somebody else I'm really interested in, Lance. Andrew Berry always has these high former picks that he takes a shot on, gives another chance to, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Devin Bush has been one of those additions that I don't feel like gets talked about a whole lot. We saw him have a pick in practice the other day, and I'm just curious to what you're seeing from him.
Well, he runs very well. Now he's not as big as I thought. He's a shorter guy. He's more of a JOK in terms of physicality. I thought he was a little bit bigger, to be honest, but he runs very well. Now you talk about going back to his rookie year. He was almost NFL, defensive player of the year, rookie player of the year. So he runs very well. And the thing that I like about Schwartz is that Schwartz, all of us who talk football and try to do the best we can, these guys, they have weaknesses, every single one of them, unless you're like a Myles Garrett type of guy, right? But Schwartz doesn't let the guys do things that they can't do. He allows them to do things they can do. And one thing that Devin Bush can do is he can run downhill. He can run sideline to sideline. He's not great coverage, but he's not terrible. He's not going to have to do that a bunch. He's going to play downhill, and these guys get to play downhill. And that's what I like about Schwartz. He fits the bill. So it comes down to, are they in more nickel where Newsom's going to be in and he's the third backer, or is he good enough to be that third backer, especially on first down when they're trying to get it to second, third, and third and long? So I'm interested to see that. That's a battle I have on my list because that's interesting. Do they do more three backers this year? Are they in nickel more? Do they play dime? Because those guys can play off the edge and D gap and have run fits. It'll be very interesting. Obviously, I'm on a mountain by myself, but I don't believe the Texans game was the complete thumping everybody thinks it was. When you go down and break that film down, now I'm an offensive guy and I always tend to be on the side of players, but it was just a game that there were some good calls and there's some things that you got to give Bobby some credit in terms of things he was doing. But these guys can run, and that'll be interesting. What you say, Nick? I don't know, but he's been very impressive in camp. But there's not been many guys who I've been so impressed with their professionalism and their day in day out grind. It's been pretty good. But you'll know, right? We'll all know come September 8th. Are they in more nickel? Are they in three backer looks? Who's the third backer? I think Tony Fields covers the best, but Devin Bush has been pretty solid. Nathaniel Watson, if you place a run team, that's a big dude now. Does he play more if you try to, teams are in 12 personnel? It'll be interesting, but they have some flexibility there, Devin Bush included.
Let's talk kickoff. This new kickoff rules fascinates me. Are you getting to see much of that when you're there? Are they running that when press is there?
They have been working on it. And I actually have a buddy who I got some tape from XFL. So I got hundreds of kickoffs from the XFL, right?
Right.
One of those nerdy guys who I like that stuff. I try to educate myself just as much as I can, just like you guys. I'm learning, right? And I've always been a lifelong learner, and I've actually come full circle on the kickoff. And I'll tell you guys first. About a month ago, if you read an article I wrote, it's completely wrong. I'm completely different right now than I was a month ago because watching that initial kickoff in the Hall of Fame game, the short area burst of those defenders being up there, I did not see that. And obviously I watch it every day, but it's been about the 30-yard line. It's about all you get because those guys cover so much ground. Now it'll be interesting because I've seen, in the XFL, they pulled and they ran like trap and they did a bunch of cool stuff, which not a lot of teams are showing. And Bubba Ventrone said that no one's showing anything and I'm not going to show anything either. But I will tell you the man-on-man blocking is very difficult for the return team. It's very difficult to be 5 yards away, retreat 4 to 5 yards, and then try to take on an NFL athlete coming at you 100 miles per hour when everybody starts from a standing position. I really thought it was going to be an offensive play, and it may be, But after watching the Hall of Fame game, I've kind of thinking for a while it's going to be a defensive play, and it's not going to be what they think. It's going to be coverage is pretty good. They're doing a good job of creating layers. I thought there would be troubles, like once they broke the line of scrimmage, they would have no one would be behind. It's not really the case in their ability to cover. But yeah, they're working on it. A lot of man coverage. It'll be interesting because I'll be watching just like you guys. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file with my stuff, and I'm going to create an all 22 file, and I'm going to break down all the kickoff and kickoff returns. That's kind of one of the things I'm going to do week one, and just see who's doing what, because you're going to get the McVays, the Stefanskis, guys who are going to be creative, right? They're going to try different stuff. I don't think there's been anything. This is like forward pass type stuff, gentlemen, in my opinion. And people disagree with me, but this is new wave stuff.
Yeah.
And even me, I like to think that I watch a lot of football, but I've come full circle. I thought it was going to be offense. Now I think it's going to be defense. I could be wrong as well. We'll see what happens. They're working on it hard, though. I'll tell you that.
What kind of personnel are the return team running out there? Because at first I was like, you might see some lighter offensive linemen, some linebackers, because you can do some trap stuff. You can create false lanes and try to shift things, but you have to have some crazy movement skills to be able to block a man in space like that.
Yeah, so maybe it'll happen. I don't know, Casey, because I was shocked on how that 0 to 5, how the shorter area explosions even more than I thought in person, right? So when that ball's hit, those defenders, that kickoff team is there in a heartbeat, and a guy has to get a good run to get to the 25, And I did, for some reason, I thought he would be full speed. I don't know what I had envisioned in my head, but it just wasn't right. But I've seen everything. I've seen linemen. I've seen linebackers. If you ask me as a football coach, I would say the linebacker types, the big DB types, the tight end types, the linemen who are good in space. Could be fullbacks, running backs, the bigger backs. Those would be the guys who are used to, big receivers. The Browns have a bunch of those guys who can block in space. I think they're going to have to start working angles. It'll be very interesting. I'll be watching just like you guys. I'll be learning just like you guys, because it's going to be very interesting. But it's not as much of an offensive play as I thought starting right now as I watch it. I don't think it'll be that. And I thought there was going to be like 3 to 5 kickoff returns in week one, and there might be, but I just don't see it. That kickoff team is there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I got to say, when I watched it, when I watched the Hall of Fame game, I did think it looked a lot different, than what I think I expected it. And I watched some of the XFL, so I had seen some of that stuff. So, but yeah, I thought kind of the same thing. Well, guys, I'm going to do a round table here to wrap this thing up. Put a bow on our little preseason preview week one. I'll start with you, Lance. We'll just go around the horn. Just give me the player you're excited about to watch the most tomorrow for whatever reason that is.
Well, besides the defensive line guys, all those young guys, it's got to be Hudson. I'd like to see Hudson really step up and kind of get to the point where he's a swing guy, can play both ways. And people talked about, and I think they have 3 really good tackles, but in the NFL, there's injuries. So I'd like to see Hudson be really, really solid tomorrow. I'd like to see him maybe on both sides, kind of, getting some reps on both sides. Protection has been an issue. And once again, I don't look too much into that because they're not always in full pads. And this is a real thing with this defensive line. This defensive line for the Browns is as good as it gets, right? So that's the guy I'll be watching, because that's the guy who protects the quarterbacks. And that tackle is very important. And there's a chance he might play, right? And he might play early. So that's the guy I'll be watching to see how he does early on, especially.
Nicholas.
Okay. Well, it has to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson, man. I'll tell you what, it's so weird to just see the Browns draft a quarterback, let him be on the roster, develop, be able, and not only is he behind Deshaun, but he's also behind Jameis. And so it's like you're in a perfect position to just sit, learn, and improve and grow. And I love that. I loved what we saw for him in preseason last year. And I still maintain that the lights were coming on for him against Denver before he got concussed. So I'm really curious to see what steps he's taking forward as we're looking here. And I know he's going to get a great opportunity to play. It makes the Browns preseason game so much more fun when you've got these quarterbacks with upside like Dorian does. Can't wait.
If you don't mind me jumping in here, Nick, I'm sorry, Casey, is that he's been really good in camp too.
That's what I've heard.
Shoulder placement. I sent out a couple of tweets. He's been really good anticipating. I think, you're right on in terms of lights coming on. I think he struggled with the playbook last year, as most NFL guys would.
Sure.
But yeah, I've seen a really, really he seems like he's really on time. Going back to what Casey said, all those quarterbacks, what you're seeing out of Watson is also what you're getting out of the other quarterbacks too as well. Sorry to cut you off, Case. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. I was going to go with Jameis just because the post-game interview will be worth it. But I think he allows these younger wide receivers to kind of shine. I think he's going to give them a good shot. But we've already talked quarterback, so I'm going to go Aiden Robbins. I want to see this young man tote the rock. He's different. He's different just from a size, frame perspective, and I want to see what he looks like in the pros. And I like big physical backs. I'm going to go back to Eddie George. So that's what I want to see.
So 2 things. First of all, he gets you to 2nd and 6, which I love. Secondly, he catches the ball much better than you would think. They've thrown some screens to him. They've split him out in 12 personnel. He's been in empty, and he's run some receiver screens. So he's a lot more talented than people give him credit for too. So yeah, that's a really good choice by all you guys. He'll get a great look tomorrow. But talk about a big human. That's a big human now.
Jameis doing a knick-knack, paddywhack, give the dog a bone. I'm not over it yet. And I just love that man so much. I'll go with, this is probably going to surprise some people, but I've just seen these videos and everything. I've been really hard on Siaki Ika. Really hard. I was angry, didn't like the pick, thought that his 2022 season was just a massive regression. And then he was at times pretty unplayable last year at times. Dude looks like a different human. Like, just looks like a completely different human, just in his body mass, makeup. Like, if you're able to trim down and still be a powerful anchor in the middle, I like the Ricci thing too. I'm glad that you brought that up. But they do not have someone behind Tomlinson and Shelby Harris, those depth pieces back there that can really anchor the middle of that line against the run if one of those guys goes down for an extended period of time. And right now, we don't know. Both of them are down. Both of them aren't playing.
Right.
They're not practicing right now. I said it all for weeks now that I think he makes the roster almost by de facto, that there is nobody else that can do what he does. But I want him to show me that he can do that at a high level. So now I want to see what I've seen, the change in his body and everything. That was step one. He checked that box. He's done that. Now I want to see him on the field, and I want to see him make me look like a dumbass. Like, just make me eat my damn words, play your damn heart out tomorrow, and I'll apologize on Tuesday.
The last time Lance was on, he was the one who told us, hey, Siaki Ika looks like different. He's transformed his body. And initially when we started talking about that, people were laughing and saying there's no difference there. And now I think it's been pretty undeniable. So just hoping, like, obviously there's dedication there. Right. Mm-hmm. So maybe that can help lead to the results that we all hope for, including him.
Yeah, no, that's the idea, right? So you got to put yourself at the table. You have no chance unless you're at, the only way you eat is if you're at the table. So it doesn't mean you will, but I think you're right. That tells you there's a level of, like, I have to get to a certain weight, and I have to be a certain body type to be able to play in the Schwartz defensive scheme. So yeah, I think you guys all had great picks. Those will be guys I watch as well.
Well, I'm not good at following rules, so I'm going to ask you one more camp question before we get out of here to pick your brain.
Sure.
The first 3 years of this front office's regime here, it was pretty cut and dry. If you got drafted, you were going to make the team, and that was it. But then we started seeing UDFAs kind of trickle in. D'Anthony Bell, Hickman. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a UDFA this year that has a chance to crack the 53?
Let's see. I would say no, just because of the depth, not because there's not guys playing at a high level. But I tell you what, there is such depth at every position. But it wouldn't shock me. I also think there's some guys that they've drafted that are going to be fighting for jobs too. Yeah. So going, like you said, the first 3 years of how they do things, right? They keep their draft picks and they do a good job of getting those UDA guys. I wouldn't be shocked. Obviously I'll be watching with you guys. It's hard. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night, but what I'm really looking forward to, and I look forward to talking to you guys about it, is I look forward to next Tuesday and Wednesday and being down there on the sideline, watching them go against the Vikings at a high level, then I'll give you a better idea if there's any other guys that can play at that level. Because, 2 years ago when the Eagles come, those are live bullets for 2 hours, and there's no one there, and it's kind of nice. So I'll have more, but it wouldn't shock me. But right now, I would say no, just because of the simple depth they have at almost every position.
Yeah, it seems almost unfair for a lot of these guys that are talented young guys. It's like, sorry, you just went to a great roster. Like, it's not even like disrespectful to you. It's just.
That's why these games are important, though. These guys are going to get to audition for the rest of the league, so when they don't make the roster here,
the eye in the sky never lies, right? So that's exactly what they're doing. You got it.
These preseason games take on a whole new level of meaning when you have this level of talent on your roster, and I really could get used to that. So I think we're all really excited about it. We're going to be bringing you all kinds of more preseason content and extra shows. New announcements coming. Lance, it means the world to us that you join us like this. The insights you provide are so valuable. We can't thank you enough. So let the people know where they can find you, Lance.
I'm on X and on Instagram. It's just at Lance Reisland. Very, very simple. Doing the same thing you guys are doing, just trying to watch the game and learn and do the best I can and break down what the Browns are doing and what the NFL is doing.
You're doing a hell of a job, man. Just a couple of closing notes to everybody. We've got a little over almost 500 people here right now. If you would click subscribe, we'll love you. We're going to give away a jersey at 1,000 subscribers. We're also going to be doing a giveaway. Homage came out with a Swagger Junior shirt, and I believe they've partnered with a local dog foundation charity group. We'll have more info for you as we come. I'll drop more links for the Homage gear as we come. In case you're twinning today.
Well, man, I like those.
They are. Thank you. They're wonderful. Homage is a great partner. If you haven't checked out their stuff, I'll make it easy for you to do so. With that being said, this is a Cleveland Browns preseason eve episode of the Barking Brown Show. Nick, he's Lance, he's Jacob, he's Casey. Go Browns.
Go Browns. I gotta